Hello, so Boris has had his virtual cabinet meeting and we have had the answer. Boris is not listening any longer to the science, he's listening to party management. He's very much aware that he's not carrying a huge proportion of the backseat members of his party. So he's listening to them. And he's acting, I think, not in the interests of science, nor in the interests of the country. He's thinking solely about remaining in power. This is worrying. It still remains unclear whether the speculation about the spread of Omicron or Micron is proportionate. Whether the response to that threat, to that spread, is proportionate, or indeed whether the threats which are made or implied are reasonable. The evidence about the spread and the threat of Omicron is inconclusive. And what we know, however, is that early bird measures against various forms of this virus have been efficacious, and that we have been late in every situation except with respect to the vaccine. So I think it's not about when or if the government acts, it's simply about when the government acts, and the government will act. And the threat, and certainly the rumour mill, is that it will be acting shortly after Boxing Day. And at the same time, we've got to balance the threats to our liberty against the constant drip, drip, drip of these stories about the parties of Christmas past, the ghosts of Christmas past parties in Number 10 and elsewhere, not only in the political world, but also in the media world. And I'm sure there'll be more stories than the leak about a possible party in the in the Sun newspaper. I'm sure there'll be many other stories like this. Eventually these stories come out. But when we look at the picture that we saw today of Boris Johnson sitting next to his fiancée then in the garden of Number 10 with another group gathered on the lawn, Boris Johnson with a glass of wine next to his hand, what are we suggesting here? Because he's saying this was a business meeting, we were doing business. Are we suggesting that we are governed by a lush? Are we suggesting that we are governed by somebody who can't make an informed decision without a glass of plonk in his hand? A Falstaff in a crisis rather than a Prince Hal? Is this the way that we are to see the rule of our country? I find this significantly more worrying than the idea that Boris is a figure of fun. So there we are. Please do leave your comments and ring the bell. Ring the bell.